up, the final statement from the ASEAN Regional Forum is out just after a day the meeting wrapped up. There was no mention of the THAAD deployment to South Korea, but participants did express concern about North Korea's provocations. President Park Geun-hye urges the National Assembly to swiftly pass the extra budget bill so that its effects can be maximized to give a much-needed boost to the economy and create more jobs. The U.S. Federal Reserve leaves its key interest rates unchanged but opens the door to rate hikes later this year, saying the risks to the economy have diminished. Stay tuned for these stories and more. It's 6 a.m. on Thursday, July 28th here in Seoul. Welcome to our newscast. I'm Hwang Jie. Thank you for joining us. We start off with the ASEAN Regional Forum. The final statement from the meeting is out earlier than expected, and it shows support for the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. The THAAD deployment to South Korea, however, was not included. Our Kwon Swa brings us the latest from the Laotian capital.
The joint statement, which represents all 27 members' opinion, includes several regional and security matters, of which one issue is of particular interest to South Korea: North Korea's nuclear and missile threats. A whole paragraph under a section titled Highlights of Discussions on Regional and International Issues deals with the current situation on the Korean Peninsula, expressing the representatives' concern over the North's violations against the international community. The North's fourth nuclear test in January, its missile launch a month later, and a recent one conducted earlier this month have been specifically mentioned, which was not the case in last year's statement. The statement also urged countries to comply with UN Security Council sanctions and called on members to create an environment in which the long-stalled six-party denuclearization talks can be resumed. Meanwhile, an official said Seoul's foreign ministry has checked with high-ranking Laotian government officials whether this really is the final statement, as it was not only released faster than expected, but also 3 days earlier than last year. Earlier, officials said that it's not looking to be easy to get every single ARF member's stance on paper. That's especially due to conflicts on issues such as the South China Sea dispute, which was a hot issue at this year's meeting. The statement expressed members' concerns over escalation on the maritime conflict and said that actions which could further complicate the situation should be avoided. What's worth mentioning is that the U.S. deployment of the missile defense system THAAD, which was said to have been on China's early draft, was not included. Evaluating the statement, a South Korean official said Wednesday that most countries have sent a strong message to North Korea during the ARF meeting, and that South Korea, US, Japan, and Australia's firm cooperation have helped reaching a satisfying result. Kwon Swa, Arirang News, Vientiane.
Seoul and Washington agreed Wednesday to make intensive efforts in the coming months to cut off cash flows into North Korea in a bid to curb Pyongyang's ability to develop nuclear weapons. The agreement comes from the third round of high-level strategic consultations on North Korea policy between South Korea's Deputy National Security Advisor Cho Tae-yong and U.S. Deputy Secretary of State Tony Blinken in Washington. In an interview with Seoul-based Yeonhap News on Wednesday, Cho said South Korea and the U.S. share the assessment that the North is ready to conduct a nuclear test at any time. In anticipation of that, the two also agreed to put together another UN resolution with much more powerful sanctions. Cho said that while the current UN sanctions are the strongest yet, there are ways to strengthen them. It's been 63 years since the Korean Armistice was signed. To keep the ceasefire in place, there is a group of officers living along the military demarcation line 2 meters from North Korea. Our Moon Gan-young's last of our three-part series.
An hour-and-a-half drive from Seoul, past one checkpoint after another, we're heading north towards the world's most heavily fortified border. We're at the NNSC, or Neutral Nations Supervisory Commission encampment on the Korean border. Here, deep inside the DMZ, nestled within 2 meters of North Korea, live 10 discreet European officers, as they have been for the last 63 years.
So here it's behind the marker. So here you're away now, standing here 10 meters, standing up 5 meters from North Korea.
The NNSC has been here at the heart of the Korean division, in the eye of the storm, for more than 6 decades. The Swiss and Swedes arrived here with tents in July 1953 as members of the Neutral Nations Supervisory Commission. Their task, to uphold a fragile armistice in place of a peace treaty.
We are not the most important pillar of it.
But what?
But we are one of it. I think that's our contribution to this validity of the Armistice agreement.
Despite the seeming calm at the encampment, there is an obvious, palpable tension in the air, here, within a spitting distance from North Korea.
We go here only if there is an imminent threat or a real, would be an attack on this area here. As long as we serve here, we send signals that the Armistice agreement is still in force.
The Korean armistice, the longest surviving armistice, made possible because of all these parties working to maintain the ceasefire.
How would you like to see the role of your two nations here on the Korean Peninsula change over the years?
An ideal position would be that I would leave my post, go home and say, mission accomplished. There is no need for a neutral nation supervisory commission anymore, because that would indicate, hopefully, that there has been a peaceful settlement has been found.
Now we're on our way to this formal weekly meeting.
Yeah.
So we always cross this blue bridge. But I have to ask you to stay here because there is only the delegates within the commissions that use this blue bridge. So please.
Okay. Let's go.
Not impossible, not unrealistic. But for now, the European monitors remain marooned in this narrow splinter of no man's land, on duty, 63 years overdue. Moon Gon-young, Arirang News, on the military demarcation line between South and North Korea.
President Park Geun-hye has asked Parliament to support her desire for swift passage of the government's stimulus plan. In a statement delivered by the Prime Minister, she stressed the extra budget is critical to boosting job creation and getting the economy moving again. Kim Young-gil has more on the president's message.
Prime Minister Hwang Kyo-ahn delivered President Park Geun-hye's message to the National Assembly on Wednesday, asking for the swift approval of the government supplementary budget proposal, saying it is essential to save the economy and create thousands of new jobs.
The budget supplement is aimed at cushioning the fallout from the industry-wide restructuring of ailing companies, revitalizing regional economies, and dealing with the external uncertainties resulting from Brexit.
The $9.7 billion proposal includes funds for restructuring efforts in the shipbuilding sector, job creation and stabilizing people's livelihoods. There are also funds allocated for rejuvenating regional economies, bolstering local government budgets and fiscal debt repayment plans. The government and the ruling Saenuri Party are hoping to see the bill passed next month, so the funds can be allocated in September. They estimate it will lift the country's growth rate by up to 0.2 percentage points this year. The opposition parties, which had said they agreed on the need for extra funds, now say they may need more time to thoroughly review the proposal. The main opposition Minju Party of Korea expressed its dissatisfaction with the bill.
The reasons for drawing up the extra budget are still unclear. The Minju Party will thoroughly assess how the funds will be allocated.
The minor opposition People's Party echoed the view, adding that the bill should include funds for a free childcare program for children between ages 3 and 5.
It's been 3 years since the president promised free childcare, but the promise hasn't been fulfilled. Our party will look into how the government plans to deal with this matter.
The party also said it will look deeper into the fragile finances of state-run banks before providing them with support. Although the three parties have tentatively agreed to vote on the bill at a plenary session on August 12th, the road ahead is likely to be far from smooth. Kim Young-git, Arirang News.
The U.S. Federal Reserve has again left interest rates unchanged, but it has left the door open to a rate hike later in the year, saying near-term risks to the economic outlook have diminished. In a statement Wednesday following its policy-setting meeting overnight, the Federal Open Market Committee kept its benchmark interest rate in the 0.25 to 0.5% range. The U.S. Central Bank said the economy had expanded at a moderate rate and job gains were strong in June. Analysts say the global slowdown, financial market volatility, and uncertainty over the impact of Brexit have repeatedly prompted the Fed to delay a rate hike. There are 3 more Fed policy meetings this year, but a rate hike at the November meeting is not seen as likely because it would happen a week before the U.S. presidential election. Now, more signs that Korea is becoming more diverse. The number of foreigners living in the country has topped the 2 million mark, making up almost 4% of the population. Our Kim Jung-soo tells us what the trend means to Korea.
As of June 30th, over 2 million foreigners are residing in Korea, according to a count released by the Ministry of Justice. The number has grown exponentially since 2000, when the number of foreigners barely reached 500,000. That number had doubled to 1 million by 2007 and then tripled to 1.5 million by June 2013. From 2011 to 2015, the number has steadily increased at an annual rate of 8% and is expected to reach 3 million by 2021. The ministry's study on foreigners' nationalities also found that Chinese nationals topped the list at 50.6%, while the United States took second place with 7.8%, followed by East Asian countries such as Vietnam, Thailand, and the Philippines. Compared to statistics from the year 2000, the percentage of American nationals has decreased by half, while Chinese nationals increased by 50%. Out of the current 2 million foreigners, more than 600,000 are employed, which is 30 times more compared to figures from the year 2000. Altogether, the foreign workforce brings a production inducement effect of 30 trillion won, or $26 billion. Out of the 600,000, 550,000 are working in low-skilled jobs, while about 50,000 have professional occupations. Experts have acknowledged that the workforce is much needed in the current economy, but have also asked for more supervision on the government's part.
Korea is suffering from a seriously low fertility rate, so should be more welcoming of foreign workers and their families. The government has to come up with a thorough and meticulous plan to determine exactly how many people should be accepted and for what specific purpose.
Other experts have pointed out that Korea's very perception of foreigners must change as the country transitions to a more ethnically diverse nation.
We need more representation of foreign nationals in our communities, our politics, and in our media. Korea has historically been a nation of a single ethnicity, but really, we should be more accepting of diversity and cultural differences.
Experts have also cautioned that the increase of foreign professional workers could intensify competition in the oversaturated white-collar job market. Kim Jung-soo, Arirang News.
All eyes are on Rio as it gets ready for this summer's Olympic Games. But once it's over, thoughts will turn to what's next and where does it rank compared to previous hosts. Kwon Jang-woo takes a look back at the past, namely the 1988 Olympics in Seoul and the legacy it's left behind.
The Olympics have traditionally been sold as a chance for host countries to invest in their economic future and elevate their standing in the world. But they don't always go smoothly, and the economic benefits in general can be questioned. This study in 2012 compares the GDP growth of host nations with those that failed in their bids, and found benefits only last up to the Games and lead to deficits by the second subsequent year. Even Olympics that were considered successful, such as LA, Barcelona and Seoul, found GDP growth difficult in the following years.
The economic benefits of a major sporting event are not evenly spread among all sectors. For example, tourism and construction benefit greatly, but other industries don't, compared to the amount of money spent on hosting.
But just looking at GDP doesn't quite tell the whole story. For Korea, although the economy did slow down after this whole Olympics, there was still growth, and that led to a new phase of prosperity. It marked a turning point for the nation, going from a post-war emerging economy to a major Asian power.
Kim In-young, the vice president of the organizing committee for the Games at the time, deems it as the most important event in Korea's modern history after the Korean War.
Korea made great strides in its democracy, the economy, society, culture, science, and communications during that time, and put on a successful event. The Korean War saved our nation, but the Seoul Olympics changed the perception of our country.
Kim said that he sympathizes with the Rio organizers, as Korea also had to tackle a number of problems leading up to the '88 Games.
There were calls for the host nation to be changed, political upheaval, threats from North Korea, the possibility of another Russian boycott. But whenever there was a problem, we dealt with it one by one. And that's just what the Rio organizers have to do.
Although a quarter of a century has passed, this whole Olympics stand as a reminder of what a global sporting event can do for a nation.
There are definite benefits to hosting an international sports event, but the planning costs need to be assessed objectively, and whether that money can be used elsewhere for greater effect.
Kwon Jang-ho, Arirang News.
And that brings us to the end of our newscast. Thanks for watching. I'm Hwang Jae. We will be back throughout the day with more newscasts. Goodbye for now.